Hello and welcome to the 62nd episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I am joined this week by a man who knows his Roman numerals, my brother Rob.
XIXIICC9999CCI.
What's up, man? Dr. Spatzo in the house.
Not much. Been absent for the past 2 episodes. Listened in. Good job. Good job on all of those.
Thank you. It's good to have you back. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
I had a near-death experience the other day.
Okay.
This is this is weird, but I slept for 17 hours on Saturday.
Wow.
I don't know why, but I went to bed on Friday night about 1 in the morning. I slept for 12 hours. I woke up. The cat got on the bed. I petted the cat. I was relaxed. I went to bed for an additional 6 hours.
Yeah, petting the cat will do that.
Well, yeah, I was like, did the cat poison me? You know, I had weird thoughts. In fact, in the middle of the night, Amber told me that I said, I'm sorry. And she said, well, what? What are you sorry for? I kind of startled her. And I said, I can't do it in time. And she said, what? And I said, the animation. So I don't know what that means.
It clearly means you can't do the animation in time. That's what that means. Gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of find oversleeping like overeating.
Right.
You just feel gorged, and whenever you're you wake up finally, you're just like, oh man, I hate myself.
Oh yeah, no, Saturday was shot. But I mean, now I can get an hour of sleep and be like, well, 17 makes up for it,
I don't know if sleep works that way. It's not like you store it up.
You're probably right. I don't know if anybody has helpful information. We're clearly not medically trained professionals, so we should probably avoid this topic.
Yeah.
But let's move on to geek news.
Yes.
Every week we like to read lots of news stories, and we bring you our favorites. This week, Rob, what was your favorite geeky news story?
Well, something I found pretty interesting, it just happened today as we're recording this, was that the Safari 4 beta came out.
That's right. I saw that.
Right. Safari is Apple's Internet Explorer, for those who don't know, and they're probably offended by me saying that. Cause
exactly.
Internet Explorer is Microsoft.
Right.
So, I mean, if anything, the best way to describe this is now Safari is Apple's Google Chrome.
Yeah, exactly.
It is in so many ways what Google Chrome has done already, but with just kind of a more spit and polish, whereas you have that frequently visited pages thing with Chrome.
Yeah.
They do that exact same thing, but this time it's curved and it's like television screens and
right. I saw a cover flow sort of feature.
Yeah, the cover flow is basically permeating every aspect of Apple these days.
And how do you feel about that? Do you like cover flow?
I really never use it.
Okay.
I think it was kind of cool when it came out on iTunes because you're flowing through album covers,
Yeah.
Just to have that visceral feeling of the album artwork.
Visceral.
Exactly. Visitate.
Right.
Beyond that, I really don't know if it's very useful. It has that kind of VRML feel where it's it'd be a lot easier if this was all two-dimensional, but I guess you just want it to look nice.
Yeah. So what are the features that you like about it? Is there anything that stands out? Should I upgrade? Because I'm a Chrome user.
Should you? I don't know if as far as how it competes with Chrome, if you have an Apple computer, you don't have Chrome yet. So get this,
That's true. My primary problem with Safari in the past has been the speed. I find the other browsers to be a lot snappier.
Really? Well, see, they're marketing this as the fastest browser out there.
Okay.
Which I don't know how it stacks up against Chrome, because Chrome is lightning fast. It's wrong fast.
Oh, yeah. Seriously, Chrome is blazing.
You're some things didn't load.
Right.
Firefox is my main browser that I use.
Yeah. How does it compare to Firefox?
It compares well. Firefox, usually I hand it a website, and it's okay, I can do that. Whereas Safari, even our own website, I think Growing Up Geek has had trouble really being interpreted by Safari. It's really fast, but it's I don't know what I can do with that. Bye. Next website. Okay, I can read it. Is there JavaScript on here? I can't do that.
Yeah, I find that with Chrome. It's a little bit iffy on the JavaScript sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's also a brand new browser, and I mean, Firefox has been around for a while. Go ahead.
And obviously, it's only been out for a day, and it's also in beta. So that leaves a lot there to be maybe they'll improve it. They have a nice little button up in the corner, which is to report a bug.
Yeah. So do you think you'll start using this, at least during the beta period, to see if it will be your new browser, or are you pretty settled?
Well, I'm liking how it works. The only thing, the main reason why I've used Firefox mostly is because Rhapsody doesn't work well with Safari, because I have to use Rhapsody's online thing, and there's no Rhapsody software for Macintosh. And I know everybody's like, "You're using Apple, and iTunes is what you need to do." No, Rhapsody is the best.
Yeah. Oh, here it comes.
Either way,
here comes the hate mail.
So check it out. Either way, I mean, it's rather harmless to try.
Sure.
It's Google Chrome with Apple spit on it.
Ew. I think you just unsold it.
What was your favorite news story of the week?
It was a toss-up, so I'm going to give you the choice.
Okay.
Would you rather hear about hell, or would you rather hear about Conan O'Brien?
Wow.
It's the common choice that we all have to deal with every day.
I think Conan O'Brien, if I was being presented by some being.
The choice when you die, hell or Conan O'Brien. Weird, but Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Jack Handey, Deep Thoughts, where he says, if you're ever given a choice between heaven or pie heaven, pick pie heaven, because it might be a trick, but if it's not, oh man.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Boy.
I was interested in the Dante's Inferno trailer that came out, but we'll skip past that.
Well, okay.
No, I was going to say, I was just interested in hell as a place that hasn't been in video games in a while. Doom, obviously, being like one of the original games I can remember. But that's Dante's Inferno. So, all right, Conan O'Brien had his last episode as the Late Night with Conan O'Brien. He's going to be moving into the Jay Leno spot. I just thought I'd mention this because for a large part of my life, Conan O'Brien has sort of been there. And in fact, I have a specific memory when we would go to the sort of the lake cottage with our family, and Mom and Dad would sort of like turn off the telephone, and there was like very little to do there. I would watch Conan O'Brien, and that's kind of how I discovered him. Interesting also is that his replacement is Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon is going to have Kevin and Alex from the Dignation podcast as some of his first guests.
Really?
Which is kind of cool. And he's been talking a lot about how he wants to kind of bring in the internet generation and use things like Twitter and blogs and podcasts and things like that.
Right.
Does that seem cool to you? Is that something that you think there's a place for? Or should the internet community remain on the internet?
Well, that's kind of taking a page out of Saturday Night Live's recent success. I think, the guys from Lonely Island kind of revitalized that interest. And I mean, they have to face it. Like, if you're serious about being in show business for the next, 15 years, which is like what Conan has done, you have to embrace that it's going to be going on the internet. And so I think that's smart on behalf of Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week. TV is sort of slowly catching up with the internet, much in the way that the music industry had to. And is there anything that you could see him do to like involve the internet community? Like Attack of the Show bothered you? So
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was honestly just thinking of Attack of the Show and how that's sort of a prototype for what he could approach and maybe do better. And I guess he could have more budget behind it.
Right.
Involving an internet audience.
Maybe a social like interaction, like voting and things like that.
Right. Have email questions come in,
right,
sort
or
of
like chat room questions.
Because like how GameSpot used to do that when they'd be interviewing people on the spot.
Right.
Here's one thing I know is that the talk show format needs fresh air. It is a boring format. It's obvious what's going to happen. It is monologue followed by band playing you over to the desk followed by interview. It's such a stale like format, like next to maybe police dramas and stuff. And I know this is like a segue, but I heard the only other thing out there that's as stale a showbiz model is, of course, the awards show.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of awards shows, this week we're talking about the 2009 Oscars. And that is the Oscars that covered the 2008 films.
Yes.
For those who haven't seen it, it aired on Sunday. The winner of Best Picture was Slumdog Millionaire.
Yep.
Heath Ledger won for Dark Knight for Best Supporting Actor.
Thank goodness.
What were your impressions of the show that you saw?
Well, awards aside, the show was actually pretty cool. I loved the low budget opening that Hugh Jackman did, which it's also props to Hugh Jackman for his singing and dancing and
he sings in like for real, like in musicals.
Yeah. He did a good job of singing. Honestly, I loved that, and the finishing the opening bit with "I'm Wolverine."
I was about to say that. Yeah, I loved that. his final line, "I'm Wolverine." It was like, yeah.
But to the geek community, that is who he is. I really feel like when we watch that show, the whole time we're not seeing Hugh Jackman on stage. We're seeing Wolverine just jumping and dancing around with Beyonce.
Yeah, and there was a stab at the geek community. I don't know if you noticed, or at least a playing along with them about how come comic book films never get nominated. How can $1 billion be wrong?
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about a film that did better than anything, and it's apparently not classy enough.
Yeah, they acknowledge that fact.
They did that quite a bit, actually, throughout it, talking about action movies. Will Smith came out. He's like, what are these movies? They have effects, they have noise, and what was that other thing? Oh, yeah, fans.
Yeah, they did. They seem very self-aware that the nominees they tend to be in fact, Hugh Jackman even sang, "I didn't see the reader."
That was so cool. Yeah, he does like this weird like robot dance, which clearly is like, I don't really know what to do here, but I didn't see the reader. And as far as award speeches go, the best, in my opinion, goes to the kind of ramblings of La Maison with the small cubes.
Oh, yeah, Le Petit Cubes, the short film. Best winner for short animated film.
Short animated film, yeah. This guy comes up and is just like, thank you this, thank you that. And then he just finishes up, he goes, Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
Oh, yeah, he was Asian, and I think he was Japanese. He knew very little English. He said, thank you very much, thank you very much. And then it looked like in desperation, he just shouted the one thing they would know, like, Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. And there was actual laughter from people, which made it seem like, oh, he's like a clown or something now. But yes, I agree. Very cool. But so let's talk about these films, because this year they did pick Slumdog Millionaire, which I saw, and I did think was a very good film. And it's not a socially important movie, but it's a dang good movie, and it's made by Danny Boyle, who is the creator of 28 Days Later and Sunshine. So, in my opinion, this is like a director to definitely watch for now.
And I heard that MIA also had a hand in creating one of the songs that was nominated.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
no, it's fully featured in the film, and when it happened,
crazy.
I was like, oh, yeah.
That was a pretty cool moment, by the way, in the Oscars. Bollywood kind of had a coming out party on the stage of the Academy Awards.
Great music.
Which is cool to see that acknowledged because, once again, billions of fans watch that stuff.
Yeah. But so, Slumdog I thought was good, but let's go back and forth here and just sort of lay out some of the movies that we enjoyed most this year. What would be something that you would recommend from 2008?
Oh, well, I guess this is in no particular order, but to mention this, I recently saw Marley and Me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost weird that it didn't make it on there because I found it was a very honest movie. And I know this isn't at all a very geek pick. This is like sort of obvious, like, oh, Jennifer Aniston and Owen Wilson. And Marley the dog. And dogs are always kind of a big seller. It's, puppies and babies, But having been a dog owner and gone through this, it was really honest and cool to see this, and it's based on a true story.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's a true story, and Mom said that there were people actually walking out of the theater at the end who couldn't take the ending. They were that affected by it.
Exactly, and I feel like maybe that was where the movie doesn't work so well as like a entertaining thing to go to. And this is what it's like to have a dog, and the lessons learned from having a dog.
Right.
And so I thought it was a great movie and really worth checking out. Kind of a weird choice. Like, the extras are always kind of, unusually good-looking in it. And me and my girlfriend were just watching it, just being like, what's the deal with all these, extras who are just, in bikinis and, walking around all right, sure.
So it's a little bit Hollywood, but you would recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. It's a good family movie, and especially for dog lovers.
So cool. I would like to highlight a little movie called In Bruges. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that or the trailer for that, but it's sort of like a gangster movie set in Belgium, specifically Bruges, which is a town in Belgium that is extremely boring, apparently, because Colin Farrell, who plays the main character, and his associate get sent there to await instructions, and they're sort of bored out of their minds in Bruges, and you've got kind of a dark comedy element to it. But I really like this film. My only downside, I would say, is it's excessively violent, especially toward the ending, and so that soured it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
But when it's working, it's really cool, and I would definitely recommend people check that out if they're at all interested in sort of the gangster type film. Very different movie, In Bruges.
Gotta definitely give a shout out to some obvious picks, but I mean Iron Man.
Oh yeah.
We did a show about Iron Man, and I still kind of hold true to that. Like, that movie is a great movie.
And it's all Robert Downey, you know?
Robert Downey Jr. does a great job, but I really feel like it was written kind of around that, too. That kind of sarcasm is felt throughout the entire script, you know? One of the things about this movie versus Batman is that it is a completely new superhero to the silver screen, and they got this right on the first try. It's amazing, and it works well, and in many ways competes really well with the Dark Knight.
Yeah, and it's the more fun of the two. Certainly, I think Dark Knight is much more serious, real crime film, but that is just like, you know, flat out fun, and still I think one of the greatest ending lines of any movie. I literally like shouted "yeah" and pumped my fists, you know, when it ended. But that's Iron Man. I want to highlight two films back to back because they are tied together by a weird theme. These were two films that were in my favorites of the year, but they both had frontal male nudity.
All right.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is a romantic comedy written by Jason Segel, who is one of the Apatow crew. He was in Freaks and Geeks, and honestly, I thought it would be a simple romantic comedy. By the end, I'm watching a vampire puppet musical. That happens in this movie, and it's awesome. And the fact that Jason Segel in real life was writing a real vampire puppet musical and had a chance to put it in this movie is amazing. Be warned, it has frontal male nudity.
Right.
Jason Segel style. But there was a lot of cool stuff to like in there, and like a lot of the Apatow movies, where you think they will just be like the sex comedy, it ends up actually has a sweet core to it. You know, it has like a real, you know, message or something about love or about, you know, real life or brotherhood or whatever.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend that. The other one is Sex and the City, which I really enjoyed. And also has male, okay, maybe it's sidal or dorsal nudity, but there is man bits in Sex and the City. Just be forewarned. Again, I hate to say it, but I loved both of these movies. Normally when you adapt a TV show to a film, it doesn't work so great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's exceptions like Serenity, of course, but a lot of times it feels less than. But I thought that the movie was awesome. It's not sugary sweet. It was very realistic for these women. They acknowledge that they are moving on in age. They're in their 50s almost. Anyway, Sex and the City and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, if you can stomach a brief glimpse of man meat, or whatever you'd call it,
right.
Check those out.
Yeah, something that was making its appearance in video games now with Grand Theft Auto. And
Lost and Damned.
Lost and Damned. It's one of the first games I've heard of. Well, I guess maybe Hitman. To have full frontal male nudity, and they said they do it in a way that's kind of just like,
I've seen the clip. Yeah,
that's male nudity.
It's totally there. Yeah. So besides that, what movies did you like?
Well, I guess following up on the pairing that I had before, Dark Knight, especially worth mentioning. I mean, this movie grossed over $1 billion, and you can't call yourself a geek, let alone a film watcher, without seeing this movie. And it was good to hear Heath Ledger getting that award posthumously. Yes. His family accepting the award. It was a touching moment. But they pointed out him hanging out the window, wind in his face, after just completely inflicting chaos upon everything. You know,
that's the one shot I'll always remember from that film is him hanging out of that car. Like, it went through my brain like, okay, this is a great movie. Like, at that point.
There wasn't even any music at that moment. In fact, they simply just go silent and show that.
Sure.
Amazing movie. Sad to see that it didn't get a Best Picture nominee. But
I would like to say something about that because, honestly, whereas Heath Ledger is the best part about that movie, just like Robert Downey is the best part of Iron Man, you see Dark Knight for Heath Ledger. But, you know, for me, as a film, it's a bit long, and a lot of things happen in the ending of that movie that I didn't feel totally worked. And when I say that, I mean the difference between number 5 film of the year and number 1 film of the year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just it might be, you know, a little bit lower down on my list for that reason, but whatever.
That's understandable. But yeah, whatever. Moving on before we're hung. WALL-E. great movie.
Now, this is one that a lot of people feel was robbed. Even hardened film critics have said, why isn't WALL-E in the Best Picture nominations?
Yeah, it was nominated for Best Screenplay, but it didn't win that. And you see how there's no dialogue. The ultimate show don't tell movie.
Right. If you can turn the volume off in a movie and still tell what's going on, I mean, to me, that's like success, you know?
And I just think for that feat, it deserves so much more than it got. And
yeah, and it won Best Animated, against Kung Fu Panda, which I did think was a really good movie as well.
Right.
But I mean, in a small category, it did win. But that's not the same as Best Picture.
But the fact that it was animated really had nothing to do with why it was a great movie.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of the difference. You know, you can say it's the best animated movie, but it's a great movie against any other movie out there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I got to give it to them. I like Jack Black's line where he said he does voice at work for a DreamWorks picture, and then he takes the money he earns from that and bets it all on Pixar.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And if you haven't seen Kung Fu Panda, I do recommend that. That's a pretty sweet animated film as well.
Actually, a higher grossing movie than WALL-E.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's going to make a lot of people cry. I would like to highlight one. I don't know how many people saw this, but Cloverfield.
Yeah.
The J.J. Abrams produced a sort of sci-fi big budget monster movie filmed through a mini cam, a handy cam.
Yeah. I was thinking about mentioning that early on because that was January that this came out.
Yeah, I really, really liked that. By the end of it, I was like, that was like a roller coaster. Like, I feel like I was on Star Tours or something, just going through this really cool hour-and-a-half long ride. A couple things I'd like to highlight real quick. There's a lot of cool, like, internet fan speculation that if you dive into, it ends up being pretty cool. There's all kind of hidden Easter eggs and things that are briefly glimpsed, and the movie maintains a mystery surrounding sort of the origins of the creature and things.
Yeah.
And especially in the very last shot of the film, there's that Easter egg. There's a sort of hidden thing that if you're paying attention, you'll see it. And I had to even look it up to find out where it is. And when I finally got it, I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I will be forever envious of my girlfriend. This was one of the first kind of dates-ish things we went on. But she had no idea what Cloverfield was about going into the theater.
Right.
Even so, I said, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. There's not.
Oh, that would be so cool.
She didn't know it was a monster movie. She thought maybe it was going to be a comedy or something. It was just she's sitting there watching these people having these conversations. And all of a sudden, explosion. And she's just like, what is going on? I do have to say, sadly, I went back and tried to watch Cloverfield again on the small screen.
Not as intense?
Not as intense. I mean, maybe I should try it on like an HD, lights down, surround sound on. But it's not something really worth putting on in the background at a party.
Well, no, it's funny you say that because I actually, when it was over, I was glad I had watched it on a small screen because, and when I say small, I mean 50-inch. Yeah. But, I mean, because it is very shaky. And I know some theaters were warning their patrons that they may get motion sick. Did you find that to be a problem in the theater?
Well, I didn't have that problem, and I didn't hear anybody puking or anything. But Cloverfield, a big budget, but through a small lens.
All right, we gotta move along here. But what's your last one?
This is one I have to wholeheartedly recommend anybody out there. Please go see this movie. It was one of my favorite and most delightful surprises this year. I'm talking about Ghost Town.
Bingo.
And you recently saw this movie, too.
I did, and that's definitely on my list. So go ahead, geek out about it.
Ghost Town, starring Ricky Gervais and Greg Kinnear, especially Ricky Gervais, if you know anything about him, or even if you don't.
Right, he created The Office in the UK.
He created The Office, all right?
That doesn't sound weird out of context.
Exactly. But no, he's a brilliantly dry comedian.
He is dry, yeah.
In terms of his endearing British attitude. But I really just felt like this movie could have been just like a comedic take on The Sixth Sense. Mm-hmm. As hard as that is to pronounce without enough saliva in your mouth.
Sure.
But instead turned out to be like this really touching, thought-out, romantic comedy, what have you. Even as so far as having very interesting insights about like what ghosts are.
Yeah.
And what it is to be haunted,
Yeah, anytime, I would cite Groundhog Day for a movie like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't get as much of the serious out of this as you probably did, but I did really find Ricky Gervais to be a treat. He's an actor who I have not seen before, and I think that's one of the reasons people should watch this is if you're sick of Jack Black, if you're sick of Will Ferrell, because you've seen them a million times, here's a guy who you probably haven't seen before who's really, really funny. Has a funny name, too, and I won't give it away. I just want to say, in joke between me and you, the scene where, "Dear Lord, spare this man," and then I really can't take this guy. I laughed so hard at that, and
Yeah.
people will know whenever they see the movie. But also, yeah, definitely high on my list.
Yeah, and for once, putting to bed the whole what's it with like New York City bus drivers just running people over.
I won't. Let's not.
Still a popular trend in the theaters. Just off-screen bus hits a guy. I can't stand it.
There's a clever twist on it though, and
right.
I did appreciate that.
Yeah. So good to see that. And that's Ghost Town.
That's Ghost Town. See it, rent it. I'm going to give one final one here, and this I would probably say is crawling towards number one. I still haven't seen The Wrestler. I still haven't seen a couple other ones I want to see, but if I had to pick a number one right now, gun to my head, I would pick Speed Racer.
Wow.
The new Wachowski brothers movie, the guys who created The Matrix, who actually fell out of favor with me after The Matrix 2 and 3, and then, slowly earned my fandom back a little bit with V for Vendetta, but now have fully got me back with this movie, which is the Moulin Rouge of action movies.
Wow.
There is a scene in Speed Racer where a car flips over another car and the driver of the top car smacks the other driver in the face with his hand. That is awesome. There's some Matrix-style moments in it, but when they happen, you're like, well, yeah, because these are the guys who created The Matrix, like if there's one group who could copy themselves,
yeah,
it's that. And there's even one moment where it goes doo and slows down. I feel like that's my theme. I did that last week with the Street Fighter thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to stop doing that. But there's an actual story here, too. It's not all action. It's not a big, dumb action movie. There's a cool story about brotherhood and about trying to, live up to your brother's reputation. Emile Hirsch plays Speed, and he's a Oscar-caliber actor who a lot of people know. John Goodman as the dad. He's got a scene. I wish I could spoil so many scenes in this, but I won't. Anime style for sure, but not trying to necessarily be an anime. I mean, it's got its own unique style. It's hyper real, video game generation film, even more so than The Matrix. This film's like, hey kid, you have ADD? Heck yeah, you do. Watch this,
Right.
So let me just say, there is apparently, rumor going around that this movie sucks. A lot of people haven't liked it. Granted, this is my opinion, but Speed Racer, I would give it a chance. If you ever liked The Matrix, if you care about fast-paced action and cool stuff, check it out.
All right. I just may. Those are our movies for 2008. Good list, Brad.
Thank you. And real quick, we're running low on time here as always, but before we close out, I want to get a little nostalgic and reminisce about growing up geek, something we like to do at the end of each show. And this week, I was inspired by paying my taxes. I finished my taxes this week, and I did that because I have a wife now who actually makes me do stuff like that early instead of waiting till the last day. But I wanted to go back to a time before we had money to care about, when we were young geeks just wanting items and having no cash to pay for it.
Dude, I go to the mall these days and I see these kids with like just cash that their parents gave them. And basically, I'm just sick of them trying to think that they know anything about economics.
Can you remember like ways that you got money or like ways that you saved up for things, when you were younger?
Well, there's always mowing the lawn.
Raker, pile maker.
And if you're lucky, you got a good flat rate worked out, $20 per lawn.
Yeah.
That you can usually transfer over even to other neighbors and be like, here's my going rate.
I can remember charting out a bunch of comic books that I was interested in buying, and it was a total of $10, but I was like, okay, I can scrub the toilet for $2.50. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like each chore had a money value.
You'd have to negotiate with them. Well,
right.
I'll do this, but for $5, not for $3. And then I can still remember the chilling day I realized the reality of sales tax.
Oh, right.
Because I had saved up $50 for MechWarrior 2.
Whew.
And went to CompUSA at Parkway Center Mall. Mm-hmm. Handed the man MechWarrior 2. handed him $50, and he was like, "That'll be $56.25." And I'm like, "What? But I don't have that, you know." And he looked at me just like, "Sorry," you know. Like, I'm like, "But I have $50, and the price tag says $49.99. You should be owing me money right now. Why is this happening?" And I think Mom stepped in and decided to pay the sales tax.
Of course.
But that was a lesson learned there in the state of Pennsylvania.
And, you know, those simple times, they do come flooding back, especially whenever money is such a burden. Whenever it was like $5, you know, and that's all you have, you know, whatever, but you're like, I'm rich, you know.
We used to go to the dollar store and pick out toys.
I know, and I think for any parent that's a perfect tip is to go to the dollar store and get your kids really like envious of the dollar store toys. And then, you know, have them like salivating over those and being like, I don't know if we can afford it. And then they're like, please. And then you could buy like, you know, all of them for cheap.
Keep them locked in the closet. So every once in a while, you can just pull one out and be like, "Hey, kid!" They'll be like, "Yay!"
That's the whole reason we had GoBots instead of Transformers. You know, we always had the more generic version, you know, but we got into them.
Yeah, but I honestly still prefer GoBots. I really wanted that gold nugget guy. I remember.
Oh shoot! Remember Rock Lords?
Rock Lords, that's what I'm thinking of.
Gold nugget guy. Yeah, there was one that was actually gold. He was like a golden boulder. But who's going to think that... Oh, no, he was gold. I get it. I was going to say, who's going to think that that's a real rock? But then I realized there is a such thing as gold. Which is probably why I don't have as much money as today.
Yeah. If you can't differentiate between a rock and a hunk of gold, you're kind of going to have money troubles.
Yeah, I think so. So if you grew up geek like us and you have any topics that you think we should discuss... hit up our website at growing-up-geek.com and leave us a comment or send us an email. Once again, my name is Brad.
I'm poor.
And we'll see you next week.